No one lives without ever hearing the negative voice in their head. Sometimes it whispers, "You're not good enough." Other times it growls, "This is too much for you." And worst of all, it repeats a toxic message over and over. "You'll never make it." These thoughts are not truth. They are just signals, and you have the right to reject them. Your mind is not a storage room for everything the world throws at it. It is a garden. And the real question is, what are you planting in it each day? If left unattended, negative seeds will take root: doubt, fear, procrastination, disappointment. And like any abandoned garden, these grow faster than anything good. One bad experience can make you believe you're a failure. One rejection can convince you that you're unworthy. That's how negative thinking quietly takes control. It doesn't shout. It creeps in through the cracks you don't notice. And if you don't fight back, it begins to shape your decisions, your behavior, and ultimately your destiny. But here's what you need to know. The mind is not the problem. The problem is that you haven't programmed it to work for you. You've let it work against you for too long. And like any other muscle, if not trained properly, it weakens. A weak mind is fertile ground for bad thoughts. A lazy mind will always choose the negative path because that's the easiest reflex. That's why you can't rely on natural positive inspiration. It doesn't come from luck. It comes from discipline. Look honestly at this. Are you spending each day building yourself or breaking yourself down? Don't say you don't have time for self-development. If you have time to scroll for hours, to complain, to analyze the past, to listen to others rant, then you have time to rebuild yourself. The issue was never time. The issue is what you prioritize. And if you're not putting yourself first, don't be surprised when your mind becomes a possession of the outside world. Your mind absorbs everything you allow, and the first thing you must do is protect it like your future depends on it, because it truly does. Don't start your morning with your phone and social media. Don't let streams of negativity, blame, and meaningless videos invade the foundation of your day. Start instead with one simple intentional action. Read something valuable, listen to something uplifting, write down what you want to achieve. Just one small action repeated daily can reset the entire framework of your thinking. You don't need to change the whole world in one day. But if you read 10 pages of a book each day, after 1 year, you'll have absorbed over 3,600 pages of wisdom, something most people never do. That's the gap between those who stay stuck and those who begin to break free. But reading alone isn't enough. If you don't act on what you've learned, you're only avoiding real transformation. Many people are addicted to motivation. They watch hours of inspirational videos, but then fall back into their old habits. That's not self-development. That's procrastination in a shiny disguise. Real change happens when you act on what you absorb. If today you hear something that wakes you up, don't just say, "That's powerful." Ask, "How will I apply this to my life today?" Then do it immediately. Don't wait for tomorrow. When you do that every day, something extraordinary happens. The negative thoughts start to lose their power. They no longer control you. You're no longer drowning in anxiety because you've shifted your focus to action. You're no longer paralyzed by doubt because you're moving towards solutions. You're no longer the one waiting. You're the one creating momentum. But I must warn you, this doesn't happen from a single act. You can't just wake up one morning, declare, "I'll think positively," and expect negativity to disappear forever. It doesn't work that way. Fear will still knock, doubt will still whisper, and you'll still have days of weakness. That's precisely why mental training must be a daily commitment. It's the only way to stay in control. Missing one day won't break you, but letting one day slide into a pattern, that's what drags you back to where you started. This is not a test of perfection. This is a test of consistency. You don't have to get it right every time, but you do have to return to the path every time you stray. Because the reason you build a strong mind is not to use it on easy days, but to protect you on hard ones. You train it not to show off, but so no circumstance can break you. And when you live like that, every action, every decision, every habit sends one very clear signal. I am the master of my mind. I'm speaking directly to you, yes, you, when I say that everything you want starts here with how you think. Every result you create, every decision you make, every step you take, they all begin with the kind of thought you choose to nurture. And you absolutely can choose. You don't control everything that happens out there, but you do control the one thing that determines everything about your life, how you respond inside your own mind. If you're serious about changing your life, don't begin with a grand plan. Begin with a simple decision. Starting today, you will choose strong thoughts, not because you're always positive, but because you've chosen not to let negative thoughts take the wheel. That's the choice that makes the difference. And when you hold it every day, your mind will no longer be your enemy. It will become the strongest ally you've ever had. You can't build a strong mind without training it every single day, not occasionally. Not when you feel inspired, but every day, no matter how you feel. If you don't actively take control of your mind, life will do it for you. And let me tell you, life doesn't care about your dreams. It doesn't care how much potential you have. It simply responds to how you allow your mind to operate. If you let go, the world will fill your thoughts with doubt, fear, and small failure can make you believe you're worthless. A single rejection can make you label yourself as not good enough. And if you don't push back, those thoughts won't just stay, they'll multiply. They'll take root in your decisions. And day by day, they'll shape the person you become. But don't get it wrong, your mind isn't the problem. The problem is you've never trained it to stand on your side. You've allowed it to react by default. And what is the default reaction of an untrained mind? Negativity, procrastination, blame, avoidance of challenge. A lazy mind will always choose the easy road, but that very road is where all ambition gets buried. You can't let that happen anymore. You have to reset. You have to take charge. And the only way is to build a discipline of self-development. Every day, no negotiation. Your mind is a muscle. If you don't train it, it gets weak. And when it's weak, it's easily driven by emotions, circumstances, and the crowd. A weak mind is the perfect tool for fear. And once fear is in control, you can no longer act clearly nor move forward. You get stuck in repetitive loops. Today you try, tomorrow you give up, then you beat yourself up. To break that loop, you have to rebuild your habits. You must stop hoping that one day things will feel better. That day won't come unless you create it. You must rewrite the script inside your head bit by bit, starting today. I don't need you to do something grand. I need you to start small, but consistently. You don't need to read for 3 hours, read 10 pages a day. You don't need to meditate for an hour, sit in silence for 5 minutes. You don't need to finish an entire course. Just start with one inspiring talk. What matters is not the scale, but the repetition. It's steady repetition that brings deep transformation, and no one else can do it for you. No one is coming to fix your mind. No one but you can protect you from false thoughts. This is something only you can do, and you must do it if you're truly serious about your future. I know you're busy. I know life pulls you in every direction, but let's be honest. You have time to scroll aimlessly, time to worry about things you can't control, time to listen to others complain. The issue isn't time. The issue is that you haven't placed yourself at the center of your priorities. And when you don't do that, you allow your nervous system to be led by weak signals. What's the result? You feel tired, but don't know why. You procrastinate, but claim you're waiting for the right moment. You feel discouraged, but can't find the reason. All because you haven't trained your inner strength daily as a foundation. Don't just absorb, act, apply what you read immediately. If today you hear a quote that wakes you up, don't just save it and forget. Write it down, stick it where you'll see it every morning. Find a way to act on it, even in the smallest way. You don't have to change completely in one day, but you must change one small thing each day. And if you do that the next day, you'll have a stronger base to go further. Those who stay consistent in their growth journey all started with very humble steps, but they didn't stop. They didn't negotiate with themselves saying, I'm too tired today. They did it, even tired. They practiced even without clear results, and because of that, they rose above, you will have low energy days. Days when everything feels unclear. But those are the real tests. Growth doesn't happen when everything is smooth. It's forged when you act, even when motivation is gone. That's not inspiration. That's discipline. And discipline is the only thing that keeps you standing when life truly tests you. When you master daily self-discipline, you don't just become stronger, you become clearer, calmer, more decisive. You no longer panic when problems arise. You no longer run around chasing the secret to success because you understand the habits you build each day are the foundation for every result you want. Don't wait for motivation to start. Don't wait until you're free to read. Don't wait until things settle down to train your mind. Action comes before emotion, and emotion will follow if you hold discipline long enough. You don't need applause. You don't need recognition. Every day you act, you send a signal to your brain, I am in charge of myself. And that signal, if repeated daily, will transform you into the version of yourself you once thought only existed in dreams. You're listening to me now, but the more important question is, are you ready to act? Because discipline isn't in what you say, it's in the habit you start. And don't give up. Starting today, do this one thing. Choose one small action to grow yourself and repeat it daily. No negotiation. You'll see in just a few weeks how you think, how you respond, and how you live will change in clear, tangible ways. Not because you did something massive, but because you chose to act consistently, with discipline, and with purpose. And from there, everything begins to shift. The past doesn't hold you back unless you're the one clinging to it. It's not your past mistakes that are keeping you stuck. It's your refusal to let go. You don't want to forget. You don't allow yourself to move forward. You've built a prison in your own mind and locked yourself inside, calling it a lesson that must be remembered. But if what you're holding on to isn't making you stronger and is only paralyzing you, then is no longer a lesson. It's a shackle. And the worst part is, you're putting it around your own neck every single day. I know that feeling better than anyone. You look back at the mistakes you've made and feel ashamed. You think of the opportunities you've missed and feel regret. You remember the people you've hurt and torment yourself. You wish you could do it all over again, but you can't. You can't go back. You can't erase what's happened, but you can stop punishing yourself with memories. And you can start again, not from the beginning, but from exactly where you are, with all the lessons you've learned. Many people live their whole lives without ever shedding the past. They let one single failure become their identity. They let one harsh criticism from years ago become an unquestionable truth. They believe that because they once fell, they'll always fall. And that belief is the real barrier. Not the past mistake itself, but the way they see themselves after it. They live as if they're a worn-out version of themselves, branded as unworthy, and then wonder why they never get any further. But you don't have to walk that path anymore. I want you to understand one thing. The past has no power except the power you give it. And you give it that power by repeating it in your mind, replaying the same scene, the same words, the same feeling. Every time you revisit it, you resurrect a weaker version of yourself. Every time you retell the story with a heavy tone, you're continuing a narrative that should have ended long ago. The only thing you should carry from the past is the lesson, not the guilt, not the shame, not the voice of blame, just the lesson. Short, clear, emotionless. Learn it and let it go. I'm not telling you to pretend it never happened. I'm not asking you to deny the pain. I'm saying you cannot let what's already behind you define the person you are becoming. Some experiences hurt so deeply you think you'll never get through them. But you're still here. You're reading these words. That means you're stronger than you thought. And if you made it through that day, you can absolutely move forward from today if you truly choose to. Many people can't move on, not because they lack ability, but because they keep looking backward, like someone driving a car but staring into the rearview mirror. Then they wonder why they keep crashing into obstacles ahead. Because you can't move forward if your eyes are locked on what's already gone. Ask yourself directly, what part of the present am I losing because of something in the past? Am I denying myself the right to move forward because of a memory I can't change? No one has succeeded without ever making a mistake. No one has lived deeply without doing something they regret. But a mature person is someone who knows how to choose what to keep. Not every memory deserves to be preserved. Not every emotion deserves to live forever in your heart. You must have the power to choose, keep or let go. And the strongest thing you can do for yourself is to let go, not because you're indifferent, but because you've already learned. You don't owe the past an apology anymore. You owe your future a clearer, wiser chance. Each time an old memory resurfaces, pause. Ask yourself, does this make me stronger? If not, change direction. Each time regret rises, remind yourself, I am no longer the person who made that mistake. I've changed, and I will continue to change. Each time doubt pulls you back, remember, you are moving forward. And the only thing holding you back is the thought that you still belong to a place that no longer exists. You have a responsibility to live for tomorrow, not to reenact yesterday. Every minute you spend tormenting yourself over the past is a minute you can't invest in growth. Every time you avoid taking action for fear of repeating old mistakes, you hand control of your future over to things that are already dead. And you deserve better than that. You don't need to carry a shackle any longer. You weren't born to keep staring at the place you fell. You were born to rise, to walk, and to write a brand new chapter, one where you no longer owe yourself anything except a single decision to move forward with awareness and freedom. Every time you open your eyes and look to the side at someone else's life, their achievements, their pace, what they have that you don't, you're draining your own inner power. Comparison doesn't move you forward. It only makes you shrink. You start to doubt yourself. You get confused about your path. You lose connection with the one thing you need to stay focused on, your own journey. And I'm telling you this clearly and directly because I know you've done this to yourself too many times. You didn't start from the same point as anyone else. You didn't grow up in the same circumstances. You don't have the same psychology, the same legacy, the same wounds, or the same lessons as anyone else. Yet you're using someone else's journey to define your speed, your results, and your worth. That is a flawed measure. And a flawed measure will always lead to a false conclusion. What you see in others is the surface, the accomplishments, the highlight moments, the milestones reached. But what you see in yourself is the depth, the struggles, the doubts, the silent failures that no one else witnessed. No one posts their fears online. No one shares their 3 a.m. panic attacks. No one talks about their loneliness, even at the top. You see their success photos, their laughing videos, their inspirational words, and you think they're nothing like you. But the truth is, they're just in a different part of the journey. And the even clearer truth is, if you keep comparing yourself to them, you'll never allow yourself to see the value you're growing within each day. Imagine you plant a seed. Every day you water it, nurture it, but after a week you look over the fence and see someone else's tree already blooming. You get confused. You start to doubt. You wonder if you're doing something wrong. And then you start digging up the soil to check if your seed is broken. That very act kills the growth. The seed doesn't need checking. It needs your patience. It needs your trust in the process. But you broke it just because you looked over the fence. You don't need to be fast. You need to be in the right direction. No one succeeds just by reaching the finish line first. People succeed because they're steady enough not to turn every time someone else takes a different path. People succeed because they hold one very clear principle. I only compare myself to myself. I don't need to be the best in the group. I just need to be better than who I was yesterday. And if today you're just 1% better than yesterday, you've won. That is the real standard. Comparison doesn't just kill motivation, it distorts the truth. It makes you forget that you are also moving forward. You start to doubt your process. You start changing your goals, not because they're wrong, but because you're afraid someone else is going faster. And so instead of going deep, you go fast. And when you rush, you make mistakes. When you rush, you lose motivation. When you rush, You lose your own precision. In the end, you don't quit because you're incapable. You quit because you weren't patient enough with your own true pace. I know you're trying. I know there are days when it feels like everything is standing still. But are you sure you're not making progress? Or is it just because someone else is running fast that you think you're slow? Be honest. If you weren't looking at anyone else, if there were no comparisons, if you weren't influenced by others' results, could you see more clearly how far you've come? You could. And that's why you need to stop looking left, stop looking right, and start looking straight ahead at yourself. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need the spotlight. What you need is steadiness, inner calm, focus. And those things cannot exist if you keep turning your head to look at others. Every time you compare, you're handing over control to someone else. You're letting the outside world define what fulfillment means for you. But you can reclaim that control right now with one single decision. Stop comparing. From this moment on, look at one person only, your yesterday self. What were you thinking yesterday? Are you thinking more deeply today? How did you act yesterday? Are you braver today? Where did you stop yesterday? How much further have you gone today? That is the truest measure, and only you can fully understand that movement. There are people moving faster than you, people with more support than you, people with a better starting point, yes. But there are also people learning from you, people being inspired by you, even if you don't know it. Some are watching you overcome the very struggles they're still stuck in. Some see the perseverance in you and wonder how you've managed to hold on this long. Don't let the noise out there make you forget that you too are someone else's example. Stay true to your path, guard it, take each step, steady, clear, whole, not fast, not rushed, not in comparison. Because no one can walk it for you, and no one, not even the most successful person you admire, has the right to define who you are. You're not walking anyone else's path, you're writing your own map, and that road, if you stay committed, will lead you exactly to where you truly belong. It's not the smartest or the most talented person who makes the biggest difference. It's the one who decides clearly and doesn't back down. The moment you truly decide, the entire game changes. Not a half-hearted decision, not a let's see how it goes type of decision, not I'll do it if it feels right, but a non-negotiable choice. Once you've chosen, you don't question it. Once you've committed, you don't keep an exit door open. You remove plan B, you stop waiting for convenience, you step onto the path, and you say to yourself, no matter what happens, I'm moving forward. The problem for most people isn't ability, it's indecision. They start out hesitant, stepping forward while still glancing back, keeping the old door slightly open just in case they fail. And it's that looseness in the decision that makes them easily broken by the first challenge. No one can stay on course when there's still a way out in their heart. And you know this well because you've been there before. You once started something only to back out when things got hard, not because you lacked strength, but because you never truly committed. A decisive choice is like closing off every other possibility except moving forward. When you do that, your mind stops getting distracted by, is this worth it or should I try something else? You shift all your energy in one direction, action. And strangely enough, when you eliminate hesitation, everything starts moving faster. You no longer waste time analyzing. You no longer wait for validation. And that action creates its own momentum. You might be thinking, I need more time, I need to be sure, but it's the waiting for absolute certainty that's holding you back. The truth is you will never be fully ready. No decision happens in perfect conditions. Successful people aren't those who knew they would succeed. They're the ones who accepted the risk and chose not to turn around. They moved while others hesitated. They acted while others waited for guarantees. And that's the difference that took them further. A real decision is not based on emotion, it's based on commitment. because emotions change. Today you feel strong, tomorrow you feel discouraged. If you only act when you're inspired, you'll never go far. But if your foundation is a firm decision, then whether it's dark or light, whether your heart is full of belief or crowded with doubt, you keep going. Consistency doesn't begin with motivation. It begins with decision. I've seen too many people fail, not because they lack talent, but because they never gave themselves the chance to go all the way. They jumped off the path the moment it got hard. They told themselves maybe this isn't the right direction. But the truth is, they simply lacked a deep enough decision to anchor them when the storm hit. And so they started over, chose something new, stopped halfway again, over and over. That loop over time erodes your belief in yourself. Eventually, they stop believing they can finish anything. You can't build a strong life on weak decisions. You can't expect extraordinary results with a mind that's still undecided. If you want what you've never had, you must commit in a way you never have. And that begins with making a decision, clear, non-negotiable, unconditional. Are you stuck in cycles of half effort? Do you start things but never finish? Do you say, I'll try instead of I'll do it? If so, it's time to get honest. You're not lacking tools. You're not lacking knowledge. You just haven't truly decided. You're still leaving the door open. And that right there is what's costing you time, energy, and belief in yourself. Remember, deciding doesn't mean everything will go smoothly. It simply means you've chosen to commit no matter what. You will fail, you will doubt, but you won't turn back. You adjust, but you don't withdraw. You learn, but you don't abandon the path. That's how you grow, not just in outcomes, but in identity. Once you decide decisively, you'll be surprised at the strength you truly possess. You'll find yourself more resilient, more focused, less shaken. You'll stop asking, am I on the right path? And instead ask, how much farther can I go today? That decision, if you hold on to it, will change the entire trajectory of your life. Not because of magic, but because you've stopped playing a half-hearted game with yourself. It's time to stop weighing pros and cons. It's time to stop asking others what they think. It's time to remove the exits and shut every back door. It's time to make the decision truly. And once you do that, you won't need motivation, because you'll have something far more powerful, an unbreakable commitment. And with that commitment, you'll go where you once only dared to imagine. Every day, you are challenged not by major events, but by small, seemingly insignificant moments. Someone says the wrong thing, plans get canceled at the last minute, or you face an unexpected rejection. And it is in those very moments that your true nature is revealed. You are not defined by the emotions you feel, but by how you respond when those emotions arise. You can react letting anger, sadness, or anxiety take over, or you can pause, take a breath, and choose a deliberate response instead of acting out of reflex. Reaction is instinctual. Response is intentional. Those who are ruled by emotion live in a state of constant reactivity, led by their environment, by other people, by forces beyond their control. They act without thinking, speak without considering, make decisions in chaos, and regret them later. In contrast, someone who has mastered themselves understands this. Emotions are waves, and every wave eventually passes. The key is not to swim wherever the current takes you, but to learn to steer your ship through even the strongest winds. Have you ever said something in anger, then regretted it later? Have you ever walked away from something you truly wanted just because of a fleeting fear? Have you ever given up just because of a moment of impatience? Those moments don't mean you're weak. They mean you haven't yet learned how to respond at the right time. And if you allow emotional reactions to repeat themselves day after day, they'll eventually reprogram your behavior, causing you to act as if you have no choice but to give up. But you always have a choice. That choice begins the moment you learn to pause. When emotion rises, instead of saying the first thing that comes to mind, hold silence for a second. Instead of reacting like before, ask yourself, what purpose does this action serve? Does it bring me closer to the person I want to become? When you pause, even briefly, you reclaim control, and it's in that pause that you demonstrate growth, not because you no longer feel emotions, but because you no longer let emotions decide your life. Imagine you are rowing a boat through turbulent waters. The wind picks up, the waves rise. You could flail and fight each wave and exhaust yourself, or you could learn to observe, adjust, and steer your boat through each wave with clarity. That's what it means to live by response instead of reaction. It's not avoidance, it's active direction. You no longer waste energy on what doesn't matter. You preserve your strength for the long journey ahead. I know you've heard the phrase, master your emotions, and maybe it sounds cliche, but it doesn't mean suppression or pretending to be calm. It means developing a new response mechanism, one where you don't act unconsciously. You are no longer a victim of passing feelings. You are someone who makes decisions from a foundation of values, not random impulses. And this doesn't happen overnight. It comes from repeated practice. Every time you're tested. You don't need to change the world in a burst of anger. You just need to change how you respond in one single moment. And then repeat. Start with the next time someone disappoints you. The next time you hear criticism, the next time things don't go as planned. In those moments, pause, breathe deeply, and ask yourself, do I want this emotion to dictate my behavior, or will I choose a response I can And if you respond with intention, you'll notice something remarkable. You're no longer easily shaken. You become steadier, sharper, and harder to knock off course. That's the foundation of inner strength, not because you no longer feel, but because you're no longer swept away. You stay clear-headed in chaos. You act from a place of intent, not reaction, and you begin to see a different outcome. Others respect you more. Your voice carries more weight, not because you shout, but because you don't lose control easily, and you respect yourself more, because you know you're no longer living on reflex, but with direction. What separates the average person from the one who goes far isn't luck. It's how they behave when provoked, when insulted, when placed at a disadvantage. The average person reacts. The person who goes far responds. The average person rushes. The person who goes far waits for the right moment. The average person lets emotion pull the strings. The person who goes far lets strategy guide the path. And you, if you've read this far, are standing at the edge of crossing over. You don't need to do anything grand. You just need to respond instead of react enough times until it becomes your new standard. Starting today, try this one simple thing. Every time an emotion flares up, don't speak immediately, don't act right away, breathe, step back a little, ask yourself, what response would make me proud of myself later? Then do that. That is how you build true maturity. Not loud, not flashy, but deep and sustainable. And once you live like that, you are no longer fragile in the face of small collisions. You are someone who holds their course no matter the storms outside. And in that moment, you are no longer living in reaction. You are living with intention. Your mind is the most powerful tool you possess, and also the easiest to be manipulated if you don't control it. Everything you do, every result you get, every habit you repeat, all stem from the quality of thinking you maintain. And the truth is, most people don't program their minds. They let it run on default mode, accepting any thought that arises, believing anything repeated enough times, reacting through emotion instead of intention. And then they wonder why they're stuck in mediocre results, in outdated loops, and in limits that feel unbreakable. You weren't born with a high-performance mindset. You didn't inherit it from anyone. You must build it. Day by day, decision by decision, through how you respond to what happens inside your own head. A high-performance mindset isn't about always being fired up. It's about clarity, intention, and consistency. It's the ability to stay focused on what matters, even when the outside world distracts you, even when a voice inside says, "That's enough, let's stop." Every morning when you wake up, you must make a clear choice. Will you allow your mind to be dragged by negative news, meaningless conversations, or those deeply ingrained self-defeating thoughts? Or will you choose to feed it with ideas that make you stronger, clearer, and more intentional? You cannot generate high performance in real life if internally you're allowing yourself to be governed by weak and fuzzy thought patterns. Your mind is a garden, and if you don't actively tend to it, weeds will grow. Without anyone watering them, fear will still flourish. Without any reminders, doubt will still multiply. So what you need is not to wait for inspiration, but to establish a training system so your mind is reprogrammed, becoming clearer and stronger each day. And that only happens if you're willing to work on your thinking, not when it's convenient, but as a non-negotiable discipline. I'm not talking about positive daydreaming. I'm talking about intervening in the default stream of thought that you've let run for too long. Start by observing what you think all day. When something unexpected happens, do you think, here we go, another failure, or this is a lesson to grow? When you see others succeed, do you think they're just lucky? Or they're an example I can learn from? These passing thoughts, seemingly harmless, are the foundation of how you react, act, and choose in life. And if you don't restructure them, you'll keep running on an old operating system, outdated, limited, and misaligned with where you want to go. Programming a high-performance mindset doesn't come from a course, a book, or a motivational talk. It comes from your willingness to stop and face yourself, to look directly into the chaos of your thoughts and start reorganizing every fragmented piece. It's a process where you ask, does this thought move me forward? If not, I will replace it with a new framework. And you repeat that day in and day out until powerful thinking becomes your new default standard. You can't expect high performance if you begin your day in randomness. You must create rituals, a mental warm-up, a moment to calibrate your frequency. It could be writing down your goals, reading a few pages of a great book, repeating a phrase to regulate your nervous system. Don't underestimate these small habits because they're the key stroke that programs your entire behavioral sequence for the day. A high-performance individual doesn't have more time than you. They simply launch their mind better and rewire it repeatedly throughout the day. And I'm telling you this not to pressure you, but to return the control to your hands. You weren't born with a fixed mindset. You are not condemned to carry limiting thought patterns just because you once lived in a limiting environment. You can reprogram your entire thinking framework, like reinstalling an operating system. But you must dare to do it, and you must do it every day. Every time you replace a weak thought with a strong one, you're rewiring your internal network. Every time you pause before a negative reaction and choose an intentional response, you're redirecting your behavioral control system. And every time you repeat that, you're not just developing high-performance thinking, you're crafting a new version of yourself, stronger, clearer, and more resilient under any pressure. High-performance thinking doesn't shield you from hardship. It ensures you won't be defeated by it. It doesn't make life easier. It makes you better. And if you sustain that long enough, you'll witness a shift, not just in results, but in identity. You're no longer the one who procrastinates, who doubts, who drifts. You become the one who takes action, who endures, who operates with clarity, someone you yourself begin to respect more each day. Starting today, begin to reselect every thought. Train your mind like you're training the most important muscle in your life. Don't wait for inspiration. Don't wait for perfection. Begin with a moment of stillness, a deliberate thought, a calibrating action, and you'll see everything you've been seeking isn't somewhere far off. It lives right here in the way you think every single day. You were not born with a fixed identity. The identity you carry today is not a permanent truth. It's merely the result of what you've believed and repeated too many times. Someone once called you weak and you believed it. You failed a few times and labeled yourself not good enough. You grew up amidst comparisons, criticism, vague expectations, and you began living as if you were a flawed version of something. But the truth is, identity is not something you inherit. It's something you build. Day by day, action by action, choice by choice. And if you've been living too long with an identity rooted in fear, it's time to break it down and rebuild from the strength that already exists within you. Fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers cleverly, be careful, don't mess up. Sometimes it disguises itself as reason. It's better to wait a little longer. And worst of all, sometimes it wears the mask of identity. I'm just that kind of person. But you are not any fixed kind of person. Every action you take today sends a signal to your brain saying, this is the person I am becoming. And if you act from fear, even if it's just hesitation, delay, or avoidance, you're reinforcing a weak identity. But if you act from strength, even in the smallest step, you're affirming a completely new identity, the identity of someone who moves forward. I've seen far too many people live their entire lives through outdated identities formed from unhealed wounds. They don't realize it because they've fused themselves with their experiences. They say, I'm the kind of person who gives up easily. I'm not a risk taker. I don't have discipline. But that's not you. That's an old version of you repeated so many times that you mistook it for truth. And believe me, the only truth you should hold on to is this. You always have the power to become a stronger version of yourself if you're willing to rebuild from within. Rebuilding your identity isn't about changing overnight. It's about choosing to act like the person you want to become every day, regardless of how you feel. You want to be confident? Walk as if that confidence is already yours. You want to be disciplined? Keep your promises to yourself, even when no one's watching. You want to be influential? Start by respecting your inner voice instead of chasing the noise outside. Every time you act that way, you're not just building a habit, you're rewriting the mental code of who you truly are. Stop waiting for the right feeling before you act. Action creates the feeling. When you act strong, you start to feel strong. When you consistently choose what's hard but right, you begin to believe you are reliable. Self-trust doesn't fall from the sky. It's built from the unseen decisions, the moments you do what's right without applause, the times you don't betray yourself even when no one's holding you accountable. You can't keep feeding a weak identity and expect strong outcomes. Every time you make an excuse, you're reinforcing the image of someone who procrastinates. Every time you compromise your goals, you're writing another line into the identity of someone who quits easily. And if you don't break that loop, you'll spend your life trapped in a version of yourself that no longer belongs to you. But if you're willing to start again, not with big declarations, but with actions, you'll witness something powerful. Your mind begins to respond differently, your energy shifts, and others begin to see you differently too, because they don't just see a new you, they feel that you've changed from the core. Don't wait for anyone to acknowledge your strength. They won't, and you don't need them to. Real strength doesn't come from someone else's gaze. It comes from the way you see yourself and no longer feel ashamed. When you can silently say to yourself, I'm proud of how I responded today, that's when you know you're building the right identity. When you no longer need to prove anything, but still choose the right action, that's when you step into a deeper level of inner power. And don't worry if there are days when you slip back into the old identity. That's normal. What matters is you don't let the fall become a sentence. You just need to get back up and keep acting like the person you're becoming, not the one you used to be. Each time you do that, you're not regressing, you're reinforcing. I no longer live from fear, I'm living from strength. Starting today, ask yourself before every action, what identity am I building with this? If it's one you want to keep, do it. If it's one you want to shed, don't. You don't need a grand announcement. Just one right step, then another. And before you know it, you'll look back and realize you're no longer who you used to be. You are someone who rebuilt yourself from the inside out through real strength. And from that moment on, everything begins to change. You can be perfectly disciplined with yourself. You can train your mind to be as strong as steel. But if you keep surrounding yourself daily with people who drain your energy, you will slowly become empty. Energy is not infinite. And inner strength, no matter how powerful, cannot be sustained for long if you live in an environment that constantly pulls it out of you. Some people don't need to insult you, attack you, or do anything malicious. All they need to do is be near you with their chronic negativity, endless complaints, and their doubting gaze toward the efforts you're trying to build. And that's enough to slow you down. Enough to make you question, am I really on the right path? Enough to make you feel guilty for daring to dream bigger than they do. And you don't even notice it until your mind becomes heavy and your life vision starts to dilute little by little. There are people who will never cheer for your progress, not because you're wrong, but because your progress reminds them they're standing still. Your transformation makes them uncomfortable, not because you've done anything wrong, but because you're doing what they don't dare to do. So instead of learning, they mock. Instead of listening, they judge. Instead of encouraging, they plant seeds of doubt. You try something new, they scoff. You begin a new journey, they ask, can you really pull it off? At first, you think it's concern, but over time, you'll feel it clearly. Your positive energy is being worn down, not by enemies, but by the ones closest to you. I'm telling you this not to urge you to disconnect from everyone, but to help you become clear-eyed in distinguishing who is fueling your energy and who is draining it without taking any responsibility. Not everyone deserves a place in your growth journey. Not everyone you were once close to should remain in your future. Some relationships persist not because they still fit, but because you've grown used to enduring them. And the habit of enduring is what kills the strongest versions of yourself you're trying to build. If every conversation leaves you tired instead of clear, if being around someone makes you doubt yourself instead of feel inspired, that is a sign. It's not necessarily your fault. And it may not even be their fault. It's simply a matter of frequencies diverging. You're moving upward, and they want everything to stay the same. You're stepping into clarity, and they choose to live in the gray. You're building, they're still dismantling. And if you don't have the courage to step out of those circles, you'll be pulled back, not by force, but by tiny comments, skeptical glances, and the unconscious reactions that repeat over and over again. No one is forcing you to absorb negative energy. That's a choice. Every conversation you agree to hear, every criticism you choose to keep, every time you stay silent just to avoid hurting feelings is a moment where you're bargaining with your future. You cannot demand freedom if you remain in an environment where you constantly have to ask permission to be different. And you cannot grow powerfully if you have to keep defending your reasons for changing. I'm not telling you to cut people off because they're weak. I'm saying this, you are not responsible for carrying their stagnation. You are not an emotional charging station for those unwilling to lift themselves up. You have the right to limit access to your energy. You have the right to protect the quiet in your mind. You have the right to decline conversations that only repeat problems but never discuss solutions. That's not selfishness, that's self-respect. And if you don't claim that right, no one will do it for you. You may feel lonely for a while. You may feel the emptiness when stepping away from people you were once close with. But what you'll gain is worth it. You'll breathe easier. You'll think clearer. You'll no longer have to explain yourself every time you make the right choice for you. And you'll finally have the space to connect with people who truly elevate you. People who don't envy your light, but light their own flame when they see you shining. Be honest with yourself. Who are you spending time with? Do they make you feel lighter or heavier? Do they make you want to move forward or retreat to your comfort zone? Do they make you feel small or remind you that you can be more powerful? If the answer isn't clear, you probably already know what needs to be done. Not everyone who comes into your life is meant to stay, and not everyone who leaves is a loss. Some people leaving is exactly what needs to happen for you to enter a new season, one where your energy isn't constantly drained, but recharged, where you don't have to ask permission to live as your true self, and where you finally no longer have to justify why you dared to dream beyond the old limits. You need only one thing, the courage to protect your space. And when you do that, You won't just preserve your energy, you'll preserve your future. It's not the challenge that kills your dream, it's quitting halfway. It's the moment you see an obstacle and believe you're not strong enough. It's when you let one small failure overshadow the entire journey. But the truth is, the only thing stopping you from achieving what you want isn't ability, isn't bad luck. It's the decision to stop before you reach the finish line. Every successful person you've ever admired has one thing in common: not extraordinary talent, but an unyielding will to keep moving forward no matter what happens. There will be days when everything collapses in front of you, days of loss, defeat, and exhaustion. Days when you put all your faith into something and watch it disappear. These days don't come to test your intelligence, they come to test your endurance. Because what shapes your life isn't what you achieve when everything goes your way, it's how you keep walking when nothing is on your side. You move forward not because you're not tired, but because you know that stopping would hurt more. I know you've had moments when you wanted to give up. You've thought, maybe I'm not meant for this path, or maybe there's no real opportunity for me. But you must understand, those thoughts don't come because you're weak. They come because you're at the edge of transformation. Right before everything changes, you will feel the strongest urge to quit. It's a law. And if you can push through that moment, you don't just continue, you step into a new version of yourself where you're no longer manipulated by circumstances, but guided by inner commitment. Life doesn't promise to be easy. It only promises that if you stay the course, you'll arrive where you're meant to be. The problem is, most people don't quit because they've been defeated. They quit when they start doubting themselves. They forget that every step forward, no matter how small, matters. They look at the distance left instead of the path already traveled, and they forget this: every day you don't give up is a day you've surpassed millions who already have. You don't need to have all the answers to keep walking. You don't need to see the light at the end of the tunnel to know the next step is worth it. You just need to hold on to one truth. Stopping won't make things easier. It only means starting over with regret heavier than before. And if you've started over many times before, you know how deeply that hurts. So this time, don't stop. Even if it's slow, even if you're tired, even if everything around you feels like it's working against you, keep going. You're not moving forward to impress anyone. You're moving forward because you owe yourself an unfinished promise, because you know that if you give up, you'll have to live on as a version of yourself you can't respect. The cost of quitting isn't the lost opportunity, it's losing the strongest part of your identity. And when that's gone, you don't just lose motivation, you lose faith in yourself. That's the deepest loss. You don't need long strides. You just need steady steps. No need to sprint. Just don't stop. Maybe today you only finish 50% of your plan. That's okay. As long as you don't let today become the first day of a new delay spiral. Maybe you just faced a major failure. That's okay. As long as you don't let that failure become your reason to step back. Look at all the times you've fallen, broken, stood at a crossroads not knowing which way to go. You still got back up. You're still here. And that's proof you're stronger than you thought. If you've ever thought of stopping, I don't blame you. But I want you to remember why you started. Remember what made your heart light up. Remember the image of your tomorrow, the solid, clear, confident version of you that you're walking toward bit by bit. And ask yourself, can I really accept becoming someone who doubts themselves forever just because of a few hard days? You're going further than you think. You might not see results yet, but you're laying the foundation. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, every time you refuse to back down when there's every reason to give up, you're engraving a powerful message into your mind. I don't fall easily. And once you repeat that enough, you become the kind of person adversity can't break. The kind who doesn't panic when storms come, but tightens their grip and keeps rowing. Keep moving forward, not because you're certain you'll win, but because you refuse to lose by surrender. You've come too far to go back, learned too much to pretend you don't know, committed too deeply to walk away from the game. From today on, no matter what happens, hold on to one unchanging principle. Don't stop. Every step forward is a declaration that you're growing, getting stronger, getting closer to what you truly deserve. And if you keep going long enough, everything will change. Not because of luck, but because you didn't give up.